Chapter 1059 Traitor 2. 1,000 years ago, only the Blood Moon sect had this robbing spirit root skill. In that case, the black-robed old man before them was connected to the Blood Moon sect. Daoist Zijin did not care about even the three greatest powers, but the Blood Moon sect. 1,000 years ago, it was the foremost unshakable power in this mainland. Later, the Blood Moon sect had grown overly powerful, single-handedly beating all others. This had aroused the hatred of hundreds of sects and powerful families in this mainland. In the end, powerful sects and families had joined forces and had barely managed to exterminate the Blood Moon sect. But they paid a terrible price. The Blood Moon sect, at its peak, it had over 100 young lords. Even after the Blood Moon sect was exterminated, 1,000 years later, its senior members were slowly recovering, and the Blood Moon sect would rise again. If they killed a member of the Blood Moon sect today, the consequences would not be as simple as antagonizing the Biming Manor. Young Lord, I can use my robbing spirit root skill to serve you. Elder Chu fixed his gaze on Yi Qingtang. That sounds pretty good. A pity that I'm not very interested in your robbing spirit root skill. However, I am interested in taking your life. Yi Qingtang smiled coldly as she looked at Elder Chu. No matter what, she was the sworn sister of the Blood Moon Holy Lord. She even had the status of Blood Moon Holy Lady. As the Holy Lady of the Blood Moon sect, Yi Qingtang must certainly act now that she had met a great traitor of the Blood Moon sect. Otherwise, she could not answer to her handsome younger brother. Elder Chu was taken aback by Yi Qingtang's words. He had no quarrel with this young lord, so why was she so interested in taking his life? Eldest young lady, slow down. Let this man live for now. Daoist Zijin was afraid that Yi Qingtang would act immediately and spoke hurriedly. He mustn't be killed. Elder Bai Kuei looked at Daoist Zijin. He is a mere Yinshao sect elder. Why can't he be killed? Daoist Zijin, can it be that you are interested in the robbing spirit root skill? Does our Yi family still need these things for embellishment? When he heard that, Daoist Zijin immediately shook his head and said, What rubbish robbing spirit root skill? Bai Kuei, are you brainless? Don't you know where the robbing spirit root skill originated from? When he heard Daoist Zijin's words, Elder Bai Kuei was shocked. The origin of the robbing spirit root skill. Bai Kuei immediately sank in a deep thought. After a few breaths, his expression suddenly changed. As the grand imperial sire of the formidable Heavens dynasty, Elder Bai Kuei could not possibly be unaware of the origins of the robbing spirit root skill. It was the Blood Moon sect, the foremost power 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, even the ancestors of the formidable Heavens dynasty had joined the plot to exterminate the Blood Moon sect. Only a senior member of the Blood Moon sect could use the robbing spirit root skill. Others could not possibly learn it. Are you saying that this man is a member of the Blood Moon sect? Elder Bai Kuei was shocked. In recent times, he had heard the news that the Blood Moon sect was reviving but had not taken it to heart. Eldest young lady, you must not kill this man, Elder Bai Kuei hurriedly said. He was suddenly on the same side as Daoist Zijin. Eldest young lady, you should be aware of the Blood Moon sect. It was the absolute power in this mainland 1,000 years ago. Although it was exterminated, it can revive. This man must have some deep connection with the Blood Moon sect. If he dies at the hands of our Yi family, we will offend the Blood Moon sect. Cold sweat seeped from Daoist Zijin's forehead. Chapter 1060 Traitor 3. Although it had been exterminated 1,000 years ago, the reputation of the Blood Moon sect was still as formidable 1,000 years later. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even the three biggest powers of today definitely did not dare to offend the Blood Moon sect. Unless all the sects and powerful families in this mainland allied again against a common enemy and completely eradicated the Blood Moon sect before it had a chance to revive fully. However, this was impossible. If the Blood Moon sect revived now, it would still be incredibly powerful. No one was willing to antagonize the Blood Moon sect. Further, the Blood Moon sect might not be powerful enough to gain dominance. If it did not impinge on anyone's interest, who would dare to stick their necks out first and take on the Blood Moon sect? Elder Bai Kuei and the Daoist Jin did not want the Yi family to be the one to stick its neck out. The Yi family had just risen to power. If they offended the Blood Moon sect and was exterminated before they had achieved anything, that would be a pity. Now, Daoist Jin and Elder Bai Kuei made up their minds that no matter what, they would not allow the eldest young lady to kill this Elder Chu. They really had the best intentions for the Yi family and eldest young lady. Even if Yi Qingtang was a young lord, no matter how powerful she was, she could not possibly oppose the Blood Moon sect. Eldest young lady, please reconsider. Eldest young lady, our Yi family cannot afford to offend the Blood Moon sect. Eldest young lady, right now, there is no need for our Yi family to offend the Blood Moon sect. A few Yi family branch masters also took the side of Elder Bai Kuei and Daoist Jin and spoke up to persuade her. The members of the Yi family did not know Elder Chu's status and were ignorant of the fact that Elder Chu was a traitor to the Blood Moon sect. They simply thought that Elder Chu was a member of the Blood Moon sect. At that moment, Elder Chu's lips curved in a slight smile. He had thought of a way to extricate himself. So I have been discovered. I am one of the 24 elders of the Blood Moon sect. If you harm me at all, it will be equivalent to opposing my Blood Moon sect. Elder Chu swept a gaze across everyone and smiled coldly. All the Yi family members turned pale at Elder Chu's words. It did not matter whether he was speaking the truth. Even if he was lying, it was inconsequential. But if he was telling the truth, and he really was one of the Blood Moon sect's 24 elders, their Yi family could not possibly bear the consequences. If the eldest young lady killed a Blood Moon sect elder, the Yi family would probably fall into an abyss from which there was no return. Even Yi Qingtang would probably suffer terrible consequences. Elder Chu, if you are really one of the Blood Moon sect's 24 elders, then I could bear witness for you. Yi Qingtang stared at Elder Chu and smiled coldly. However, you actually betrayed the Blood Moon sect and entered the Yunxiao sect. I suppose you haven't forgotten about that. When they heard Yi Qingtang's words, Elder Bai Kuei, Daoist Jin, and even all the Yi family branch masters were shocked. This Blood Moon sect elder was a traitor of the Blood Moon sect? Oomph. Elder Chu snorted coldly. Nonsense. Although Elder Chu spoke with conviction, he was feeling rather guilty. How did this young lord know about these events? Elder Chu, do you recognize me? Yi Qingtang stared at Elder Chu. No. Elder Chu had already studied Yi Qingtang and found her unfamiliar. Since you don't recognize me, do you recognize this? Yi Qingtang pointed to her brow, her lips curving upwards. Chapter 1061 Traitor 4. Elder Chu was taken aback by Yi Qingtang's words. He did not understand her meaning, but involuntarily glanced at her brow. The next moment, a thin blood-colored crescent moon surfaced on Yi Qingtang's brow. The singular blood moon aura filled the entire area. The blood moon aura, which was unique to the Blood Moon Holy Lady, gradually surfaced. Elder Chu was stunned for a few seconds when he saw the blood-colored crescent moon on Yi Qingtang's brow. When he snapped out of his trance, his lips moved a little, but he remained rooted to the spot. 1,000 years ago, Elder Chu had been a Blood Moon sect elder. He certainly recognized the mark of the Holy Lady of the Blood Moon sect. The girl standing before him had such a powerful Blood Moon aura. Holy Lady, impossible. That's impossible. Elder Chu could not believe it. Elder Chu was ashen. The young lord standing before him was the most mysterious Holy Lady of the Blood Moon sect. Even more mysterious than the two Blood Moon guardians, who had never been seen before. Also, the status of Blood Moon Holy Lady was even higher than that of the Blood Moon sect master, almost equal to that of the Blood Moon Holy Lord. When the Yi family branch masters, Daoist Jin, and the others saw the Blood Moon mark on Yi Qingtang's brow, they were also stunned. However, when they learned from Elder Chu that their eldest young lady was actually the Blood Moon sect Holy Lady, they were completely shocked. They stared at Yi Qingtang and almost forgot to breathe. Holy Lady, please have mercy. Great Holy Lady, please have mercy. With a thump, Elder Chu's body slumped, and he kneeled by Yi Qingtang's feet. Elder Chu, 1,000 years ago, you betrayed the Blood Moon sect. You collaborated with outsiders to kill numerous members of the Blood Moon sect. Now, I'm going to show you grace and be merciful. Yi Qingtang fixed her gaze on Elder Chu and blandly spoke. Actually, Yi Qingtang did not really identify with her status as Blood Moon Holy Lady. However, the Blood Moon Holy Lord was her sworn brother and was loyal to her. Now that she had run into a traitor of the Blood Moon sect, she naturally needed to put the sect's affairs in order. Besides this connection, Elder Chu and the others in the Yunxiao sect had also harmed many of the younger talented martial arts cultivators. Of course, it was none of Yi Qingtang's business as to who Elder Chu and the Yunxiao sect had harmed, but the Xinling sect had almost been exterminated by the Yunxiao sect, and this was closely related to Elder Chu. No matter what, Yi Qingtang would not allow him to leave. Kill him. Yi Qingtang looked at Bai Kuei and Daoist Zijin. Oh, what? Daoist Zijin was taken aback. When he recovered his wits, he still looked rather shocked. Eldest young holy lady kill? Kill, repeated Yi Qingtang. I hate traitors the most. You Blood Moon sect traitor. You betrayed the Blood Moon sect and betrayed the Blood Moon Holy Lady. Your crimes are unforgivable. One of the Yi family branch masters stared at Elder Chu and shouted angrily. The next moment, Daoist Zijin, Bai Kuei, and a few Yi family branch masters advanced together and simultaneously struck a killing blow. Although Elder Chu had been a Yang Lord 1,000 years ago, his current martial skills were merely around Yin Yang perfected Lord Third Heaven. He could not possibly compare with Bai Kuei, Daoist Zijin, and others. Within the span of 10 breaths, the Yi family members had acted together to kill him. After Elder Chu was killed, the group from the Yi family stared at the blood-colored mark on Yi Qingtang's brow. They were all shaken. Besides being a Yang Lord, their Yi family's eldest young lady was actually the Blood Moon sect Holy Lady. No wonder she had become a Yang Lord at such a young age. No wonder she dared to challenge the Beiming Manor without fear. Chapter 1062 Shameless 1. Although the Yi family members were surprised, Yi Qingtang did not explain to them, and the branch masters and elders did not dare to ask further. After killing Elder Chu, Yi Qingtang bade farewell to the Yi family members and informed Elder Bai Kuei to bring Yi Ling and the other 3 elders of the Yi family to Yunxiao sect. Afterward, she left the formidable Heavens dynasty and flew towards the Nine Knights dynasty. It had been a long time since she left Falling Sky Valley, and it was now time she settled the matters there. Currently, Falling Sky Valley had internal and external troubles. Not only did perfected Xianxun have to face the other peak masters, but he was even pressured by the peerless school. Yi Qingtang's return to the Nine Knights dynasty was none other than to resolve Falling Sky Valley's conflict. In the sky, at the boundary of the formidable Heavens dynasty, Yi Qingtang slowed down instantly as she looked behind her. At this instant, 2 extremely powerful auras were flying towards her at lightning speed. After sensing these 2 powerful auras, Yi Qingtang inspected her back. In 2 breaths' time, these 2 auras were increasingly near, and 2 elderlies arrived at the spot in a flash. These 2 elderlies were similar in age. Looking at their outfits, they did not seem to be from sections. However, their auras resembled that of strong waves that swept across the surroundings. They were at least at the Yang Lord level. Little girl, you run really fast. One of the white-robed elderlies sized up Yi Qingtang for a moment, and shock emerged in his eyes as he commented with a laugh. Yi Qingtang similarly sized up the 2 elderlies who suddenly arrived and blocked her way. With the cultivation base of a Yang Lord and the fact that they appeared in the formidable Heavens dynasty, one did not need to think much to know that they were from Beiming Manor. May I know what you 2 stopped me for? Yi Qingtang looked at the 2 elderlies and said. After hearing Yi Qingtang, one of the elderlies said, "Little child, I heard that you annihilated Yunxiao sect." "That's right," Yi Qingtang said bluntly without waiting for the elderly to continue. Both elderlies were slightly stunned when they heard Yi Qingtang admitting it so straightforwardly. Little girl, do you know that Yinshao sect is a super sect that is an affiliate of Biming Manor? By annihilating Yinshao sect, it is equivalent to opposing Biming Manor. The Biming Manor elderly looked at Yi Qingtang and said with a smile, "You two can just state your reason for being here. There's no need to beat around the bush," Yi Qingtang said. "Haha, little girl, you're rather young, but you have quite a temper." Another elderly sneered, "I have a deep-seated hatred with Yinshao sect. It is right that Yinshao sect is annihilated by me when its skills are lower than mine. Yet, you two are blocking my way and calling me arrogant," Yi Qingtang said. "Oh," the Biming Manor elderly snickered. "In that case, Yinshao sect is rightly annihilated by you since its skills are lower than yours. So, is it right that you're killed by us if your skills are lower than us? If you all have the ability, why not give it a try?" Yi Qingtang cast a look at the two people and said coldly, "Haha, there's no hurry." Another elderly laughed. "Little girl, you're so young, but you're already a young lord. Our Biming Manor is one of the three mighty forces of this mainland. We pay great attention to powerful talents. Given your skills, you can completely join Biming Manor, become an elder, and have the same status as us. How's that?" Chapter 1063 Shameless 2. The two Biming Manor elderlies were here for none other than Yi Qingtang, a young lord. Once Yi Qingtang left and was not within Biming Manor's boundary of control, or joined Peerless School or Phantom Valley, it was not a good thing to Biming Manor. Although it was said that Biming Manor could never accept another young lord in order to maintain the balance among the three mighty forces, they could not let the young lord end up in someone else's hands. They had to hold on to her first, and whatever they decided to do with her was something to be dealt with later on. Join Biming Manor? Yi Qingtang shook her head. "Not interested. Not interested." After they heard Yi Qingtang's words, a glint flashed across the Biming Manor elderly's eyes, no matter whether this lady was uninterested in Biming Manor or in the three mighty forces. Both Biming Manor elderlies did not dare to take this risk, as the consequences would be dire should they not deal with this young lord. "Not interested. Do you still want me to say it a third time?" Yi Qingtang said coldly. Yi Qingtang had lived for hundreds of years and was clearly aware of what Biming Manor was thinking, which was merely to hold on to her. However, once she joined Biming Manor, the consequences would then be truly dire. "Little girl, do you really not want to reconsider?" The Biming Manor elderly stared at Yi Qingtang and asked with a frown. "There's no need to reconsider," Yi Qingtang replied firmly. Upon hearing Yi Qingtang's reply, the two Biming Manor elderlies exchanged a look. One of them nodded with a smile and said, "All right. Biming Manor has never forced people to do things against their will. Since you're unwilling, forget it then. However, if you're interested in the Biming Manor in the future, you can head to Biming Manor directly. Our doors will always be open for you." "If that's the case, thanks a lot then," Yi Qingtang said. It was the best if the two Biming Manor elderlies thought that way. However, Yi Qingtang snickered to herself. They spoke so nicely on the surface, but it was impossible for Yi Qingtang to not know exactly what those two were thinking. "I'll take my leave then." Yi Qingtang cupped her fists towards the two Biming Manor elderlies and subsequently turned around, wanting to leave. However, just as Yi Qingtang turned around, one of the Biming Manor elderly's eyes twinkled. Horrifying killing intent exploded from him, and he dashed forward at top speed. He was so fast that one could only see the motion of the waves of air with the naked eye. A black mist that emerged from his palm subsequently aimed towards the back of Yi Qingtang's head. For a battle among young lords of similar cultivation realm, if one party was totally unguarded while the other launched a sneak attack, the one who sneaked an attack could very possibly kill the other with one strike at close distance. However, at this critical moment, Yi Qingtang scoffed. In a flash, she turned around and raised her palm to attack the Biming Manor elderly. A deep rumble echoed around them immediately. As Yi Qingtang's palm slammed against the Biming Manor elderly's palm, it was as though there was a thunderous explosion from the sky. After this strike, the two of them retreated several steps away from each other. Oh, the Biming Manor elderly stared at Yi Qingtang and was taken aback. He previously saw that this young lord was young and judged that her experiences in the outside world should be rather little. As such, whatever he said earlier on was just to make Yi Qingtang lower her guard. Chapter 1064, Shameless 3. However, the Biming Manor elderly could not understand one point no matter how he thought about it. His words were flawless, and there was nothing to pick on. Yet why was this lady already prepared for this attack? If Yi Qingtang was completely unprepared before and sensed it afterward, it was impossible for her to react so quickly, and she would have definitely been injured. However, that was not what happened. Biming Manor, one of the three mighty forces of this mainland. I never thought that the manor has such sly people. Yi Qingtang looked at the Biming Manor elderlies, and a cold glint emerged in her eyes. If she was not already on her guard earlier on, the consequences would be unthinkable. Once she was injured and the two young lords before her joined forces, they would be an extremely huge threat to her. Ha! Little girl, you've annihilated Yinshao's sect and injured my Biming Manor envoy. You already have a death crime. If you join Biming Manor today, perhaps Biming Manor can still let bygones be bygones. However, you don't know what is good for you. Since that's the case, there's no need for you to leave here today. The Biming Manor elderly sneered, exposing his true nature. Even if I joined Biming Manor, I'm afraid that it does not have room for me either. By then, even if I died, I would most likely die mysteriously. Yi Qingtang snickered coldly. Oh, you even know about this too? The two Biming Manor elderlies were startled and were in disbelief. Given this girl's age, she could actually analyze all of that. Ha! Little girl, it seems that you're not a brainless young lord. With things as such, there's no harm coming clean with you. Your guesses are indeed right. Currently, the three mighty forces are relatively balanced. And with you, a young lord, this balance will be destroyed no matter which side you join, and the side you join would definitely be jointly annihilated by the other two forces. Neither the Phantom Valley Peerless School or our Biming Manor wish to see such a situation happen. As long as you die, everyone will be happy, right? The Biming Manor elderly laughed. Yi Qingtang did not retort and nodded. What you said makes a lot of sense. However, the condition is that you all need to have the ability to do so. Humph. Little girl, don't be so selfish. Even if it's for the balance of the three mighty forces, offering your life is worth it, a Biming Manor elderly said. It's a pity that the so-called three mighty forces that you all are talking about are nothing in my eyes, said Yi Qingtang. Ah, interesting. I just thought that your thinking is extremely mature. Now, it seems that that is not the case. After all, you're too young. Do you really believe that you are unparalleled now that you are a young lord? The Biming Manor elderly scoffed. Each of the three mighty forces of this mainland had 4 young lords. With a total of 12 young lords, what could Yi Qingtang, a mere itinerant cultivator, amount to? I don't dare to believe that I am unparalleled, but I should be skilled enough to deal with you too. Yi Qingtang had an indifferent expression. After hearing what Yi Qingtang had said, the Biming Manor elderly was infuriated. With death at hand, how dare you make such bold claims? Then, the Biming Manor elderly shot a look to the other elderly. That elderly then retrieved a scarlet ancient mirror from his space ring. As the scarlet ancient mirror appeared, a surge of olden air flooded out. Chapter 1065 Mirror of Illusions 1. A blood-colored light suddenly gushed out of the scarlet ancient mirror in the Biming Manor elderly's hand, as though it was an everlasting aurora. Without giving Yi Qingtang any time to react, it instantly enshrouded Yi Qingtang in it. Sensing the aura of this blood-colored light, Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. This scarlet ancient mirror was a Dharma treasure exclusive to young lords. Its level was extremely high, and only young lords and those above the young lord realm could control and use it. Ha ha! Little girl, this mirror is the captive sky mirror. Even a young lord will lose control of their body movement once they are caught in this mirror. The beaming manor elderly who held the ancient mirror snickered as he looked at Yi Qingtang, who was sealed within the ancient mirror. No matter how powerful a young lord was, if they were unable to move and face two other young lords who were set out to kill, the only outcome was death. Yi Qingtang immediately activated the powers of the heavenly demon bloodline and executed the heavenly demon devouring bloodline in the fastest time possible. The devouring bloodline could devour everything in this world, including mental energy and physical energy. No matter what energy this Dharma treasure made use of, it was unable to withstand the strength of the heavenly demon devouring bloodline. As the devouring powers were executed, the blood-colored light from the ancient mirror was completely swallowed by Yi Qingtang's heavenly demon devouring bloodline in no time. Moreover, Yi Qingtang could clearly feel that the power in her body seemed to have increased a little, probably from devouring the ancient mirror energy earlier on. Although it was not obvious, she could still feel it. Noticing the situation, the two beaming manor elderlies were dumbstruck and could not comprehend the situation. This little girl must have a similar Dharma treasure to counter it. The elderly with the scarlet ancient mirror mumbled with a frown. Both beaming manor elderlies did not have much knowledge about the heavenly demon bloodline, and thus were oblivious that Yi Qingtang used the heavenly demon devouring bloodline earlier on. A battle among young lords was not simple and took up a lot of time. As such, both young lords originally wanted to use the Dharma treasure to end the battle quickly, but they never thought that the captive sky mirror would have no effect on Yi Qingtang. Read more chapter on VIP novel. Come humph. Since that's the case, we will join forces and use the secret sound sky spirit technique to kill this girl. The beaming manor elderly said, "That's the only way." The other elderly nodded and immediately stored his scarlet ancient mirror. Then both of them used their palms to form a print, and a massive primordial chi and mental energy instantly erupted. The secret sound sky spirit technique was one of the divine techniques of beaming manor. However, the conditions for executing this technique were extremely harsh and required young lords of at least yin-yang perfected Lord Seventh Heaven to join forces in order for the technique to have an invincible might. It was difficult for even Yi Qingtang to defend against such a divine technique. The secret sound sky spirit technique mainly attacked one's mental state and was not considered a physical attack. Thus, there was no way to defend against it. This was also the frightening aspect of the technique. In an instant, an unusual sound that resembled a howl from hell rang around Yi Qingtang and caused goosebumps. It is not only your beaming manor that has Dharma treasures. Without hesitation, Yi Qingtang immediately retrieved an even plainer ancient mirror from her space. This ancient mirror was the Mirror of Illusions. It could only be used by the Phoenix bloodline and would materialize all attacking forces. Yi Qingtang obtained this Mirror of Illusions in the Dragon Vein as a gift from the Divine Phoenix after obtaining the Divine Phoenix inheritance. Chapter 1066 Mirror of Illusions 2. The two beaming manor elderlies did not recognize the Mirror of Illusions in Yi Qingtang's hand and were not affected by anything. Thus, they focused fully on the secret sound sky spirit technique. However, Yi Qingtang used the Mirror of Illusions at this instant. In the next second, all the unusual sounds actually turned into logs of wood. The logs fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground noisily. The scene that played out before their eyes left the two beaming manor elderlies completely dumbfounded and in disbelief. The secret sound sky spirit technique actually turned into logs of wood when shown on by Yi Qingtang's ancient mirror. How could this be? What is that Dharma treasure of yours? One of the beaming manor elderlies stared at Yi Qingtang and asked in disbelief. They had never heard of a Dharma treasure which could turn attacks into logs of wood. However, Yi Qingtang scoffed and did not utter a word. She immediately stored the Mirror of Illusions and turned into a flash of shadow as she leaped forward. Using her palm as a knife, she slashed down at one beaming manor elderly. Noticing the situation, The Biming Manor elderly grunted in fury, immediately stepped forward, and entered a scuffle with Yi Qingtang. However, this person's martial skills were only at the late stage of Yin Yang perfected Lord Seventh Heaven and was not Yi Qingtang's opponent. Dozens of moves later, he was already in a disadvantageous position. Another Biming Manor elderly joined in instantly. This person's martial realm was similar to that of Yi Qingtang's Yin Yang perfected Lord Seventh Heaven peak. However, even if the two Yin Yang perfected Lord Seventh Heaven late stage and peak cultivators joined forces, they were still on a losing ground and were simply not Yi Qingtang's opponent. How can this be? The two Biming Manor elderlies were increasingly astonished as they fought. Although Yi Qingtang was at the peak of Yin Yang perfected Lord Seventh Heaven, her combat powers did not lose to an Eighth Heaven cultivator and were even neck and neck with their Biming Manor chief. Read more chapter on VIP novel. Calm in no time. These two Biming Manor elderlies were severely injured. Should they continue the battle, it would not be of any threat to Yi Qingtang, while they would be in a dangerous situation instead. Retreat first. The two Biming Manor elderlies exchanged a look, and one of them said with a frown. After fighting with Yi Qingtang for some time, both of them were fully aware that it was impossible for the two of them to be of any threat to Yi Qingtang in the current situation. They could only leave first and leave subsequent matters to be resolved by the Manor Chief. If the Manor Chief took action personally and came with their few young lords, this lady could be killed easily. Humph, little girl, your skills are indeed impressive. However, you have offended Biming Manor now, and there's no way out. We will not pursue you anymore today. The situation will change. The next time we meet, I will take your life. Afterward, the two Biming Manor elderlies turned into a flash of shadow and flew towards the sky. You come and go as you wish. Do you think it's that simple? If Biming Manor sent all its young lords and the Biming Manor chief, even Yi Qingtang would be unable to cope with that. It was best to kill these two young lords here right now. Swoosh! Yi Qingtang waved the regicide sky blade, and a scarlet sword gleam with an extremely intense power of the divine phoenix bloodline slashed the sky. Boom! One of the wounded young lords was caught off guard and fully bore Yi Qingtang's blow. Chapter 1067 Mirror of Illusions 3. The Biming Manor elderly was extremely pale from the blow and spat out blood as he fell from the sky to the ground. Realizing the situation, the other Biming Manor elderly was alarmed and did not dare to stop for a second. He sped up and flew with all his might, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Yi Qingtang did not continue to pursue that young lord who fled away and instead landed from the sky and stood before the heavily injured Biming Manor elderly. It was this person who spoke cleverly to make her put down her guard and then targeted her with a lethal strike. The Biming Manor elderly was as pale as a dead person as he watched Yi Qingtang warily. Never had he expected that this lattice combat power would be this large and powerful. The previous plan was for him and the other young lord to join forces. If they could convince Yi Qingtang to join Biming Manor, then they would leave it. But if they were unable to convince her, they had to kill her right there and then. Nonetheless, no one had expected that even when he joined forces with another young lord, in the end, they were also not Yi Qingtang's opponents and were defeated by her. One should not harbor any murderous thoughts. If careless, the one who dies will be yourself. Yi Qingtang looked at the heavily injured Biming Manor elderly and scoffed. You dare to kill me? The Biming Manor elderly's expression darkened. You and Biming Manor have not reached the irrevocable stage. If you kill me, Biming Manor will definitely be after your life in the future. Can you take on Biming Manor on your own? I don't want to have any relations with Biming Manor at all, but you all will not leave me alone. Since that's the case, don't blame me for putting up a strong resistance. As she spoke, she did not even give the Biming Manor elderly any reaction time and waved her regicide sky blade. In an instant, the regicide sky blade chopped the Biming Manor elderly's head, and a young lord of the Biming Manor died like that. Biming Manor's loss of a young lord was not as simple as just the death of a powerful figure. The three mighty forces of this mainland had 4 young lords each, and this resulted in a counterbalancing effect where no party could do anything to another. Nonetheless, now that Byming Manor lost a young lord and only had 3 young lords remaining, it would no longer be on the same level as Phantom Valley and Peerless School, and they were at the very least weaker than the other 2 great forces. If Phantom Valley and Peerless School learned of the death of this young lord, the consequences would be disastrous. Once one of the 3 mighty forces were weakened, it would definitely face the invasion of others. This was the law of the jungle and also an unchangeable fact of the struggle between forces. Yi Qingtang believed that Byming Manor would not have any time to deal with Phantom Valley and Peerless School, much less herself. She searched through the Byming Manor elderly's body and kept his space ring. Subsequently, she shot up into the sky and flew towards the Nine Knights dynasty. Given Yi Qingtang's current speed of a young lord, it merely took half a day for her to fly from the formidable Heavens dynasty to the Nine Knights dynasty. Apart from resolving the internal and external crisis of Falling Sky Valley, Yi Qingtang could perhaps spread the news that Byming Manor lost a young lord to Phantom Valley and Peerless School. However, once Yi Qingtang returned to the Nine Knights dynasty, she would probably have some conflict with Peerless School to help Falling Sky Valley. Chapter 1068 Falling Sky Valley 1. Several Peerless School disciples returned to Falling Sky Valley again. Apart from demanding Falling Sky Valley to hand over perfected Zuanshan's disciple, Yi Chun, they also requested an increment in the offerings to Peerless School. The Full Moon Peak Master, Xian Yuan Yi, told the Peerless School disciples with a smile that Yi Chun is indeed not in Falling Sky Valley right now, Humph. We have already investigated it clearly. That fellow isn't even from the ancient clan and has an unknown origin. Injuring a Peerless School disciple is a crime punishable by death. We don't care where that fellow is right now. He is the disciple of your Falling Sky Valley Master, and we will only ask Falling Sky Valley for him, one of the Peerless School disciples said. Upon hearing that, Full Moon Peak Master Xian Yuan, he sized up perfected Xianchen and snickered. Yi Chun was perfected Zuanshan's disciple, and perfected Xianchen had to be the one who gave an explanation. What you all said is very true. Xian Yuan nodded and said, however, that Yi Chun is perfected Zuanshan's disciple. Valley Master will definitely give Peerless School an explanation for this matter. Please rest assured. Everyone's eyes landed on perfected Xianchen successively. Perfected Xianchen, that Yi Chun is your disciple. You must hand over Yi Chun today, or you will bear the consequences yourself. The Peerless School Warden looked at perfected Xianchen and scoffed. Perfected Xianchen frowned deeply upon hearing that. Yi Chun had left Falling Sky Valley for a long time and never appeared since then. While perfected Xianchen was unaware of Yi Chun's location, he would definitely not tell anyone Yi Chun's location, even if he knew that Yi Chun was his disciple. To be honest, I don't know where my disrespectful disciple is at either. Thus, I am afraid I cannot do anything to help. However, the issue of increasing Falling Sky Valley's offerings to Peerless School can be considered. Perfected Xianchen looked at the Peerless School people and said, increasing the offerings is a must. However, Yi Chun must be handed over as well. This is Peerless School's orders and not a negotiation with your Falling Sky Valley. A Peerless School Warden shouted coldly. Perfected Xianchen was extremely helpless, but could not do anything either. At this instant, a Falling Sky Valley disciple came and greeted Perfected Xianchen with cupped fists. Valley Master. Full Moon Peak Master furrowed his brows and yelled furiously. Insolent! Don't you know how to look at the occasion? Peak Master. It's not, the Falling Sky Valley disciple said hurriedly. A powerful figure is here to pay Falling Sky Valley a visit. Powerful figure. Everyone was stunned to hear what this Falling Sky Valley disciple had said. What kind of powerful figure is it for you to rush in here, without permission, so insolently? The Full Moon Peak Master questioned coldly. It's a young lord. The Falling Sky Valley disciple replied hastily. Everyone was taken by surprise. A young lord was visiting Falling Sky Valley. Young lord. Even perfected Xianxun was filled with astonishment, much less Full Moon Peak Master. That's right, the Falling Sky Valley disciple said as he nodded repeatedly. The young lord is from Peerless School? The Peerless School warden asked after some thinking a young lord in the Nine Knights dynasty could only be from Peerless School. I don't know about that. The Falling Sky Valley disciple shook his head. It was the first time in his life seeing a young lord. God knows if that young lord was from Peerless School. Chapter 1069, Falling Sky Valley 2. It must be my Peerless School's young lord, the Peerless School warden said with affirmation, though he was very confused as well. Why did their Peerless School's young lord suddenly come to Falling Sky Valley? Go. Let's welcome the young lord together, said the Peerless School warden. Then everyone rose and walked out of Falling Sky Valley. Outside Falling Sky Valley, Yi Qingtang stood far away. Several Falling Sky Valley senior executives and disciples were already beside her, and their attitudes were extremely respectful. A young lord was an unparalleled, powerful figure of this mainland, and a young lord's visit was a great honor to Falling Sky Valley. However, the Falling Sky Valley senior executives were extremely curious as to why a dignified young lord would be at Falling Sky Valley. A while later, Peerless School's warden and disciples, perfected Xianxun, Full Moon Peak Master, and the rest walked over briskly. Everyone was surprised when they saw Yi Qingtang. No one had expected that not only was this young lord a lady, she was also so young. Looking from her appearance, she seemed to be in her teens only. Of course, regardless of her age, no one dared to belittle a young lord. The Peerless School warden sized up Yi Qingtang in surprise. This lady was not from their Peerless School, but was indeed an authentic young lord. There was only a handful of young lords on this mainland, but why did a young lord suddenly appear out of nowhere? Greetings, young lord. Perfected Xianxun, Full Moon Peak Master, and the rest immediately bowed to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang nodded. Dare I ask for your name and origin? The Peerless School warden asked. Who are you? Yi Qingtang looked at the Peerless School warden and said coldly, I am a warden of the Peerless School. The Peerless School warden said with a haughty expression. Get lost. Yi Qingtang shot him a cold look and said rather impatiently with a frown. The Peerless School warden was instantly enraged after hearing Yi Qingtang. He was a warden of Peerless School and represented the entire Peerless School when outside. Yet this lady dared to tell him to get lost. So what if she was a young lord? Their Peerless School had 4 young lords. Young lord, this is a Peerless School envoy. I believe you aren't foreign with the Peerless School. There are 4 young lords in the Peerless School. Full Moon Peak Master, Xianyuan, looked at Yi Qingtang and said, What are you? Yi Qingtang's eyes landed on Xianyuan. Yi Qingtang clearly remembered that before she left Falling Sky Valley, Xianyuan was after her life. Now that she was back, she had to settle this score with Xianyuan as well. Seeing that Yi Qingtang behaved this way, Full Moon Peak Master did not dare to utter another word. Given his cultivation realm, the young lord before him could easily take his life with just a thought if she wanted to. As such, Xianyuan did not dare to continue speaking Xianyuan. He looked at Yi Qingtang discreetly, and his brows were deeply furrowed. For some reason, he felt that this unrivaled young lord before him was a little familiar looking, as though he had seen her somewhere before, but he could not recall where. Young lord, may I know if you have any instructions for gracing Falling Sky Valley with your presence? Perfected Xianxun looked at Yi Qingtang and asked. I passed by coincidentally and want to take a look at Falling Sky Valley, Yi Qingtang said. Chapter 1070 Casual Stroll. Perfected Xianxun was doubtful, but did not dare to speak as he wished when just inches away from an unparalleled young lord. Since that's the case, please enter Falling Sky Valley, young lord. Perfected Xianxun immediately took a small step back and gestured to Yi Qingtang politely. Yi Qingtang did not say a word and entered Falling Sky Valley. After knowing that a young lord appeared in Falling Sky Valley, both Peak Masters of Watercut Peak and Blue Cloud Peak showed up. However, Yi Qingtang only talked to perfected Xianxun and did not really bother with the other peak masters. At this instant, perfected Xianxun was walking in the lead, while everyone else was beside Yi Qingtang and did not dare to say anything. No one was clear of this young Lord's intentions for coming to Falling Sky Valley, and perfected Xianxun could only be extremely cautious. However, the Peerless School Warden and the other 3 peak masters were rather impatient, especially the Peerless School Warden. Outside, he represented Peerless School, but the person who accompanied the foreign young lord was not them. What was this? The Peerless School Warden sized up Yi Qingtang. She was extremely foreign and was not a young lord from Peerless School, Phantom Valley, or Biming Manor. Everyone, we are not yet done settling our matters today. Very quickly, the Peerless School Warden swept a look across perfected Xianxun and the rest. Perfected Xianxun frowned deeply. He looked at the young lord before him and said apologetically, "Young lord, we still have some matters to discuss. If you have time, how about staying in Falling Sky Valley for 2 days?" Upon hearing that, Yi Qingtang sneered on the inside but maintained an indifferent expression. "Don't bother with me. You all can just discuss your matters." Perfected Xianxun nodded. After giving Yin Shu instructions, perfected Xianxun returned to the main hall with the Peerless School envoy. Currently, Yin Shu was accompanying Yi Qingtang cautiously. This was also Yin Shu's first time seeing and standing so close to a young lord. "You are Yin Shu." Yi Qingtang's eyes landed on Yin Shu as she commented softly, "Young lord, I am indeed Yin Shu." Yin Shu did not dare to look Yi Qingtang in the eye. Thus, he lowered his head and replied respectfully, "I'm talking to you. Why are you not looking at me?" When Yi Qingtang saw the usually serious Yin Shu's current behavior, she could not help but laugh in her heart. Upon hearing that, Yin Shu was startled and hurriedly looked up at Yi Qingtang. Their eyes met. When Yin Shu looked at the almost perfect face that was inches away from him, his heart skipped a beat. Not only was this young lord young, but her appearance was also truly extraordinary, like that of an otherworldly fairy. "Bring me around the valley." Yi Qingtang looked at Yin Shu and said. Noted. Yin Shu hurried, walked at the front, and brought Yi Qingtang around the valley. Sometime later, the two of them arrived at a training field and saw a few disciples exchanging blows. Just as Yi Qingtang stopped in her tracks, she suddenly heard a loud rumble. A flashing shadow of a male shot towards her like an arrow. With sharp eyes and agile hands, Yi Qingtang immediately caught that figure. Looking at the enraged male before her, Yi Qingtang recognized that this person was none other than her master's disciple, Ji Yishuan. "Thank you, junior sister." Ji Yishuan was boiling with anger when he took a look at Yi Qingtang and actually did not recognize Yi Qingtang at once. Although Ji Yishuan had seen Yi Qingtang's female appearance before, a lot of time had passed since then. Chapter 1071, falsely accused of a capital offense. When Ji Yishuan was in the formidable Heavens dynasty, Yi Qingtang had rescued him from the hands of the Yunshao sect disciples. So, of course, Ji Yishuan had seen her real face. However, some time had passed. It was natural for Ji Yishuan not to recognize her immediately. Presumably, Yin Shu had taken Yi Qingtang for an ordinary Falling Sky Valley disciple. But at that moment, Yin Shu was frowning deeply. This Ji Yishuan was actually addressing a young lord as his junior sister. Did he have a death wish? Ha! Ji Yishuan, you are so weak even though you are the Valley Master's disciple. I can see that most of perfected Zhuanshan's sect is useless. Before Yin Shu could open his mouth to remind him to maintain the act, a white-robed man suddenly stared at Ji Yishuan and laughed coldly. "Xin Yuanlai, you are spouting nonsense." Ji Yishuan shouted in anger. The person who had just spoken was Xin Yuanlai, the grandson of the Full Moon Peak Master, Xin Yuanyi. When Yi Qingtang left the Falling Sky Valley, she planned to head to the Dragon Vein. Xin Yuanlai had left the valley to block her way and kill her, but was defeated by Yi Qingtang. After that, Xin Yuanyi had arrived in time to pursue Yi Qingtang, intending to kill her. Yi Qingtang still remembered these past hostilities. Naturally, her present return to the Falling Sky Valley was to call in her debts. Humph! Xian Yuan Lai immediately shouted coldly. Ji Yishuan, you stole the Full Moon Sutra from the Full Moon Peak. That is a capital offense. Xian Yuan Lai, you framed me. Ji Yishuan bellowed coldly. What a joke. Our Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra was found on your person. How dare you argue against such compelling evidence? Clearly, perfected Zhuanshan's disciples are all like that. Xian Yuan Lai laughed coldly. Yin Shu could not help but frown at the scene before him. He immediately smiled at Yi Qingtang apologetically. He advanced to face Ji Yishuan and asked, Yishuan, what's going on? This Xian Yuan Lai took the Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra under the guise of wanting to spar with me. He doctored the Full Moon Sutra and then secretly hit on my person, but he said that I stole the Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra. Ji Yishuan said to Yin Shu. When he heard Ji Yishuan's words, Yin Shu looked at Xian Yuan Lai meaningfully. Full Moon Peaks was growing stronger, and it had asked Master Perfected Xianxin to give up his position as Valley Master. In addition, Watercut Peak and Blue Cloud Peak had declared that they would be on the side of Full Moon Peak. During the past few days, Xian Yuan Lai had been going around provoking Full Moon Peak members and had become increasingly unrestrained. But they had not imagined that he would frame someone. Stealing a sutra was a capital offense. Even though he was the Valley Master, Perfected Xianxin could not protect Ji Yishuan unless the latter could produce evidence. In addition, the Full Moon Sutra was indeed found on Ji Yishuan's person. Everyone had seen it, and there was no way he could deny it. Yishuan, do you have any evidence that Xian Yuan Lai framed you? Yin Shu looked at Ji Yishuan and frowned as he spoke. If Ji Yishuan could produce evidence, he would be saved, and he could also denounce Xian Yuan Lai for defamation. This, Yin Shu, I have no evidence. Ji Yishuan shook his head. Although he knew what had happened, he could not prove that Xian Yuan Lai had framed him. Xian Yuan Lai had certainly planned this for a long time. He would not be caught out on any of the details. Yin Shu, this beast, has been provoking our kin and now has framed me. Clearly, he has ambitions regarding Full Moon Peak and is about to act. Ji Yishuan said hastily. Was anyone unaware of his ambitions towards Full Moon Peak? Chapter 1072, The Death Penalty, is inevitable. Yishuan, don't talk nonsense. Yin Shu glanced at Ji Yishuan. Although everyone was aware of these matters, it was better not to say them out loud, especially in public. Ji Yishuan, I think you are just spouting nonsense because you know you have committed a capital offense and cannot avoid death. Xian Yuan Lai laughed coldly. He then faced a few justice wardens who were standing nearby, cupped his fists, and said smilingly, Lords, there is irrefutable evidence that Ji Yishuan stole my Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra and committed a capital offense. With that, a warden of the Hall of Justice nodded and said, We already know that. We have come today to capture Ji Yishuan and bring him back to the Hall of Justice for questioning. When he heard that, Xian Yuan Lai's lips curved upwards and arched in a cold, mysterious smile. But Yin Shu frowned deeply. Ordinary people could not enter the Hall of Justice. Even if they were innocent, they would certainly lose a layer of skin after entering the Hall of Justice. Now, the Hall of Justice was under the Full Moon Peak's jurisdiction. If Ji Yishuan was really brought into the Hall of Justice, the consequences would be dire. Ji Yishuan would probably cease to exist within the Falling Sky Valley. Wardens, this matter is too important. With that, Yin Shu looked at the Justice Wardens and spoke. When he heard that, the Justice Warden said coldly, You are right. Stealing the most precious treasure of the Full Moon Peak, the Full Moon Sutra, is indeed important. Wardens, the truth of this matter is unclear. Even if Ji Yishuan really stole the Full Moon Sutra, he is still the Valley Master's disciple. The Valley Master is discussing important matters with the Lord of the Peerless School. If we really want to deal with this matter, we need to wait for the Valley Master to have time to attend to it personally, Yin Shu said. After he heard Yin Shu's words, one of the Justice Wardens laughed coldly and disdainfully. Even if a prince commits a crime, he should be punished in the same way as a commoner. In any case, Ji Xuan is only a disciple of the Valley Master. Even if the Valley Master were to come here personally, it would be of no use. This, Yin Shu sank into silence. It looked as if the Hall of Justice had indeed sought refuge with the full moon peak. Otherwise, they would not deal with such an important matter so casually. In addition, Xian Yuan Lai's words were full of loopholes. Ji Yixuan was the Valley Master's disciple and had even more profound sutras that he could study. Why would he seek out something inferior and even risk his life to steal the Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra? It did not make any sense. At that moment, the wardens of the Hall of Justice did not care about these loopholes at all. They only wanted to swiftly convict Ji Yixuan. As to what they were thinking, only they themselves knew. Stop talking nonsense. A warden of the Hall of Justice shouted coldly. Ji Yixuan, you have committed a heinous crime in stealing the most precious treasure of the Full Moon Peak, the Full Moon Sutra. Based on the rules of the Falling Sky Valley, if anyone steals a peak's item, they have committed a grave offense. To steal a peak's secret sutra is a capital offense. Now you've been caught red-handed. Do you plead guilty? Plead guilty. A bone-chilling laugh came from Ji Yixuan. I, Ji Yixuan, have been honest and above board my whole life. My conscience is clear. If you want my life, you can have it. If you try to falsely accuse me and shame my master's reputation, then you could dream on. What a joke. The Full Moon Sutra that the Full Moon Peak lost was found on your person. Everyone saw it, and it cannot possibly be false evidence. Even if you deny it 100 times over, it will still be useless. Ji Yixuan, you better give yourself up. If you resist, you will suffer the consequences. The warden of the Hall of Justice shouted coldly. Chapter 1073, In Deep Trouble to the Hall of Justice. It was not important whether Ji Yixuan had really stolen the Full Moon Sutra. What was important was that Ji Yixuan was related to the Valley Master and that they were part of the Full Moon Peak. Clank! Ji Yixuan suddenly drew the sword at his waist. Are you really going to resist? When they saw that, the wardens of the Hall of Justice and Xian Yuan Lai laughed coldly. If Ji Yixuan resisted, they could kill him on the spot. Then, the Valley Master, perfected Xianxin, would not be able to retain his position for much longer. Yin Shu. Ji Yixuan looked at Yin Shu. Tell my master that I, Ji Yixuan, have been honest and above board all my life. I have never done anything deceitful. Today I, Ji Yixuan, have been maligned by the Full Moon Peak. This incident is merely a ruse by the Full Moon Peak in its bid for power. Ask my master to be careful. I will leave first. As he said that, Ji Yixuan brandished his sword upward. His face was filled with determination. He would use his death to prove his innocence. He would not allow perfected Xianxin and the others to be besmirched in any way by him. What? When he saw what was happening, Yin Shu's expression changed. Ji Yixuan's long sword was already at his neck. He was too fast, and although Yin Shu tried to stop him, it was too late. However, at that moment, Yi Qingtang flicked her wrist. No one saw what Yi Qingtang did, but the long sword in Ji Yixuan's hand was instantly struck to the ground. Junior sister. Ji Yixuan looked at Yi Qingtang in shock. He did not know why Yi Qingtang had stopped him. Yi Qingtang looked at Ji Yixuan, who had resolved to die. She could not help but sigh inwardly. This senior brother Ji was too straightforward. Yi Qingtang laughed softly. If you didn't do it, why use your death to prove it? It's not worth it. Yin Shu was also shocked. He had not thought that this young lord would act in time to rescue Ji Yixuan. How dare you? At that moment, a warden of the Hall of Justice glared at Yi Qingtang in rage. Who are you to impede the Hall of Justice? When he saw what was happening, Yin Shu wanted to speak out and stop them. But he thought for a moment and remained silent in the end. At that moment, Yi Qingtang was looking at the warden. Her eyes were expressionless. Are you talking to me? Bring both Ji Yixuan and this girl back to the Hall of Justice. Now, I suspect that the two of them were in cahoots to steal the Full Moon Peak's Full Moon Sutra. The warden of the Hall of Justice shouted coldly. When she heard that, Yi Qingtang smiled and nodded slightly. I never thought that in this day and age, there is still someone who dares to speak to a lord like that. Yi Qingtang's words surprised everyone. Who did this girl think she was to call herself a lord? Only a young, perfected lord could be called a lord. The next moment, the force of a young lord shot skyward. In an instant, it shrouded the entire falling sky valley. It was as if a lord demon from hell had descended. A blood-colored light flashed through the entire void. Under the supreme force of a young lord, everyone present started to shudder violently as their pupils constricted. At that moment, the full moon peaks, Xianyuan Yi, the various senior disciples, and the wardens of the Hall of Justice were completely stunned. They stared at Yi Qingtang in disbelief. Young Lord. One of the wardens of the Hall of Justice felt that the earth had split and that the sky had fallen. It was like the end of the world. He had actually tried to capture a young lord. No one had taken any notice of Yi Qingtang. They had just assumed that this girl was an ordinary disciple of the Falling Sky Valley. However, at that moment, they all realized that this beautiful girl was an invincible young lord. Chapter 1074. Miss Yi. At that moment, the wardens of the Hall of Justice in the Falling Sky Valley were all stunned. They stared at Yi Qingtang in disbelief. Why would a formidable young lord, who was invincible in this mainland, appear in their Falling Sky Valley? Yi Qingtang's bland gaze passed over the wardens of the Hall of Justice. Without another word, she struck out with her palm. The power of a young lord instantly filled the entire area. The bodies of the wardens of the Hall of Justice instantly transformed into mists of blood and vanished from this earth. Everyone was shocked and struck dumb when they saw a young lord strike and swiftly kill the wardens of the Hall of Justice. The next second, Yi Qingtang's gaze fell on Xianyuan Lai. This person had tried to kill her outside the Falling Sky Valley. Now that Yi Qingtang had returned, she certainly would not let him off. With just one look, Xianyuan Lai's eyes, ears, and nose started to bleed. Under the oppression of Yi Qingtang's young lord force, he died almost instantly. Ji Xuan looked at Yi Qingtang in shock. His lips moved slightly, as if he had forgotten how to think. Even Yin Shu had not expected Yi Qingtang to kill so decisively. Even Xianyuan Lai had not been able to escape. Greetings, young lord. I did not recognize the young lord just now. Please forgive me. Ji Xuan bowed to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang looked at the Ji Xuan, who was terrified and trembling. She gestured at him so that he would not stand on ceremony. By her reckoning, Yi Qingtang had already saved Ji Xuan twice, including the time in the formidable Heavens Dynasty. Truly, she and Ji Xuan were fated. At that moment, Ji Xuan was studying Yi Qingtang closely. However, upon closer inspection, Ji Yixuan's expression became increasingly peculiar. Why did this young lord seem so familiar? He felt that he had seen her somewhere before. Yi Xuan involuntarily searched his mind, and after a moment, he suddenly seemed to recall something. His pupils constricted violently. You are Miss Yi. Yi Qingtang could not help but laugh softly when she saw sudden realization dawn on Ji Xuan. He finally remembered who she was. Yin Shu's expression was rather strange as he watched this scene between Ji Xuan and Yi Qingtang. Could it be that Ji Xuan knew this young lord? Although Yi Qingtang did not admit it, her smile clearly showed that Ji Yixuan's guess was correct. Ji Xuan was highly agitated and could not calm down. In the formidable Heavens Dynasty, Yi Qingtang had rescued him from the hands of the Yunshao sect master's disciples. Ji Yixuan remembered that Yi Qingtang was an ordinary disciple of a sect named Xianling sect in the formidable Heavens Dynasty. Within the short span of half a year, she had appeared again as an invincible young lord. I have some matters to discuss with perfected Xianshun, so I shall bid you farewell. Yi Qingtang looked at Yin Shu and Ji Xuan. With that, she vanished on the spot. At that moment, in the Great Hall, perfected Xianshun was facing pressure from the Full Moon Peak Master and the other two major Peak Masters. He was enraged, but helpless. Perfected Xianshun, as Valley Master of Falling Sky Valley, you have allowed your disciple to act wildly and offended the disciples of the Peerless School. This matter is closely related to you. Now, you should hand Yichen over or give up your position as Valley Master. Full Moon Peak Master, Xianyuan, he looked at the silent perfected Xianshun and spoke coldly. The masters of the other two major peaks, Cutwater Peak and Blue Cloud Peak, immediately spoke up to agree. Aha, perfected Xianshun, I can tell that you have reached the end of your time as Valley Master of Falling Sky Valley. Within 3 days, you must hand Yichun over to the Peerless School. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. The warden of the Peerless School shouted coldly. What arrogance! A cold shout suddenly reached everyone's ears. The next second, Yi Qingtang entered and swiftly stepped into the Great Hall. When they saw Yi Qingtang's sudden arrival, the 3 major peak masters and the warden of the Peerless School all frowned. Why was this young lord everywhere? These were the internal affairs of the Falling Sky Valley. What business was it of hers? Chapter 1075, Yi Chun. I'm afraid this is none of your business. The warden of the Peerless School looked at Yi Qingtang somewhat impatiently. Really? The corners of Yi Qingtang's mouth curved up slightly. She shielded her face with her sleeve. Within the span of 10 breaths, her beautiful young girlish face quickly transformed into that of a handsome young man. And this young man was the Yi Chun that they were looking for just now. A half-smile hung on Yi Qingtang's lips. Her gaze passed over everyone as she said, Yi Chun, are you looking for me? You are Yi Chun? Perfected Xianshun stared at his own disciple, completely shocked and somewhat disbelieving Yi Chun was actually a girl and a young lord. How is that possible? You are Yi Chun. The Full Moon Peak Master, Xianyuan Yi, looked at Yi Qingtang in shock and disbelief. Xianyuan Yi, your grandson Xianyuan Lai has already died. As a grandfather, aren't you afraid that your grandson will be lonely? Shouldn't you keep him company? Yi Qingtang lifted her eyes slightly and glanced at the Full Moon Peak Master, Xianyuan Yi, from the corners of her eyes. What did you say? Xianyuan Yi's expression was one of shock. Come here, Yi Qingtang exclaimed. A cold light suddenly flashed across Yi Qingtang's smiling eyes. Without giving Xianyuan Yi a chance to open his mouth, she suddenly grasped his neck and choked him. At that moment, Xianyuan Yi was in Yi Qingtang's grasp and was unable to struggle. His body left the ground as Yi Qingtang lifted him up into the air. Have mercy! Xianyuan Yi's face was flushed as he stared at Yi Qingtang in terror. Mercy! When she heard Xianyuan Yi's plea, the smile lurking at the corners of Yi Qingtang's mouth seemed to deepen. When she had left the Falling Sky Valley earlier, Xianyuan Yi had continually pursued her. Had he shown any sign of mercy? If you want mercy, you better ask for it in hell, Yi Qingtang said blandly. In the next second, there was a snap. Without giving Xianyuan Yi a chance to speak, Yi Qingtang had swiftly twisted Xianyuan Yi's neck. Yi Qingtang glanced at the lifeless Xianyuan Yi and then casually threw the body at the feet of the warden from the Peerless School. The envoy from the Peerless School, was both shocked and angry. He glared at Yi Qingtang. What's the matter? Doesn't your Peerless School want to capture and question me? Yi Qingtang looked at the Peerless School warden. I'm here now. Why don't you act? However, the Peerless School warden did not dare to say anything. He only clenched his fists, speechless. Their pride in being a warden of the Peerless School made them unable to humble themselves. Although the person before him had injured disciples of the Peerless School, she was also a genuine young lord. If they started a fight with a young lord as Yi Qingtang had suggested, their fate would probably be the same as that of the Full Moon Peak Master, Xianyuan Yi Chun. We represent the Peerless School. You previously injured some disciples of the Peerless School. You should give an account. The warden of the Peerless School looked at Yi Qingtang and said, An account. Yi Qingtang's gaze swept across the warden of the Peerless School. Her face showed no expression. I have already given you an account. I'm here now. You can act whenever you want. The The peerless school warden gritted his teeth in anger, but was unable to argue. Yi Chun, it is true that you are a young lord, but you are not showing the peerless school any respect at all, the peerless school warden said. Chapter 1076, Am I Afraid? Peerless School. When she heard that, Yi Qingtang's eyelids drooped. The corners of her mouth curved in a small smile. What about Peerless School? I don't even care about the formidable Heavens Dynasty's Biming Manor. There are 2 Biming Manor young lords out to kill me, but I have already killed one of them. I'm not even afraid of the Biming Manor, so why should I be afraid of the Peerless School? You killed a young lord from the Biming Manor? The Peerless School warden was taken aback by Yi Qingtang's words. In this mainland, the 3 biggest powers each had 4 young lords. This kept things in balance so that they were on equal footing. But if one of the powers lost a young lord, then the balance of power among the 3 would be lost. Either the Peerless School or the Phantom Valley could attack the power that had lost a young lord. The outcome of a fight between 4 young lords and 3 young lords could be imagined. I still have some internal matters to settle in the Falling Sky Valley today. I don't have time to bandy words with you. Scram. The warmth in Yi Qingtang's eyes had swiftly faded. The warden of the Peerless School just needed to bring back the news that the Biming Manor had lost a young lord. Humph! The Peerless School warden scoffed coldly. He immediately rose and led the Peerless School disciples out of the Great Hall and into the Falling Sky Valley without a backward glance. As the Peerless School warden left, Yi Qingtang's gaze fell on the 2 peak masters of Cutwater Peak and Blue Cloud Peak. Heirs at that moment, the 2 peak masters were struck dumb. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Who would have thought that perfected Xuanqian's disciple, Yi Chun, had now appeared in the Falling Sky Valley as a young lord? If they had known about this, they would never have dared to collude with Full Moon Peak. From now on, you are stripped of your positions as masters of Blue Cloud Peak and Cutwater Peak. You are expelled from Falling Sky Valley. Yi Qingting looked at them and said calmly, You... The 2 of them were shocked. Why? Yi Qingtang's expression seemed imbued with a trace of bone-chilling frost. Her gaze swept over them inch by inch. You colluded with the Full Moon Peak to do such underhanded things. Have you forgotten about them? You have better vanish forever from my sight before I change my mind. I won't repeat myself. When they heard Yi Qingtang's words, the Blue Cloud Peak and Cutwater Peak masters were so frightened that they were soaked in cold sweat. They did not dare to speak anymore and immediately got up. They only wished they had been born with a few more legs. They swiftly fled and vanished without a trace. It was all too easy for a young lord to kill martial cultivators of their level. With just a thought, they could be smashed into smithereens and transformed into nothingness. As she looked at the 2 of them flee, Yi Qingtang resumed her original appearance. She looked at the shocked, perfected Xianshun, and the sharp look in her eyes completely faded and was replaced with gentle amusement. Master, are you pleased with this conclusion? Are you really Yi Chun? Perfected Xianshun felt as if he was in a dream. He could not imagine how Yi Chun, who was clearly a male, could now become a female, especially one with terrifying powers of the cultivation of a young lord. Master, I was originally a girl, but when I first came to Falling Sky Valley, I had no choice but to present myself to others as Yi Chun, explained Yi Qingtang. I see. When perfected Xianshun heard Yi Qingtang's explanation, he realized that Yi Chun was Yi Qingtang's false name. So, what is your real name? Perfected Xianshun asked Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang. She answered honestly. Chapter 1077, The Old Valley Master, Yi Qingtang, the girl who obtained the fiend celestial beast cub in the hell of Avicenaraka. Perfected Xianshun was shocked. Yes. Yi Qingtang nodded. In that case, I understand. Perfected Xianshun nodded. Yi Qingtang had obtained a young fiend celestial beast in the hell of Avicenaraka. This news had spread throughout this mainland. If Yi Qingtang had not disguised herself and completely changed her appearance, she would not have lived until today. However, before perfected Xianshun could continue speaking, Exclamations could be heard from outside the Great Hall. Yi Qingtang and perfected Xianxun immediately walked out of the Great Hall together. Outside the Great Hall stood a white-robed old man. On the ground lay dozens of corpses. One of the corpses was the peerless school warden. The peak masters of Cutwater Peak and Blue Cloud Peak were also there. Perfected Xianxun looked in surprise at the white-robed old man who was standing nearby. Old Valley Master, Old Valley Master? Yi Qingtang looked thoughtful when she heard Perfected Zuanshan's words. Previously, in the formidable Heavens Dynasty, it seemed that Ji Xuan was looking for the regeneration stone to allow the Old Valley Master to continue living, and the Old Valley Master had been seriously injured by the peerless school warden. Perfected Xianxun looked in shock at the old man who was standing nearby. Although the Old Valley Master had obtained the regeneration stone and managed to survive, he had not been able to recover from his severe injuries and had been recuperating behind closed doors. What had caused him to leave his seclusion to return to the Falling Sky Valley? Old Valley Master, are your injuries better? Perfected Xianxun asked the old man. When she saw that Perfected Xianxun was about to walk over to the old man, Yi Qingtang caught hold of him. This old man's aura was rather peculiar, and the bodies on the ground were inexplicable. Yi Qingtang looked at the Old Valley Master pointedly and said, "Old Valley Master, did you kill the peerless school warden and these other people?" Old Valley Master killed them. One of the Falling Sky Valley disciples hurriedly nodded. The Old Valley Master looked at Yi Qingtang and studied her for a moment before a strange smile lit his face. Peak of the seventh heaven of Yin Yang, perfected Lord. Not bad at all. After he had spoken, the old man ignored Yi Qingtang and the others. A pitch-black pearl surfaced on his brow. Under the glow from the black pearl on the old man's brow, the peerless school warden and the dozens of other corpses transformed in a black mist and instantly rushed into the black pearl. This, when Perfected Xianxun saw the Old Valley Master's appearance, he was shocked and was somewhat disbelieving. The Old Valley Master looked like he had suffered from chi deviation during his recuperation or had cultivated some kind of sinister power. However, the Old Valley Master ignored Perfected Xianxun. He looked towards the void and sighed softly. Time is running out. Perfected Xianxun was taken aback when he heard that. He involuntarily asked, "In what way are you short of time?" Yi Qingtang followed the Old Valley Master's gaze, and after a moment, she also frowned slightly. The Old Valley Master was studying the area in which the dimension wall had been smashed, as if the Old Valley Master knew something. "You come here." The Old Valley Master gestured slightly with his right arm. The peak masters of the other 12 peaks instantly had their necks broken by the Old Valley Master. The next moment, the ground was littered with numerous corpses. Chapter 1078, The Conspiracy. Old Valley Master, what are you doing? Perfected Xianxun was completely dumbfounded upon witnessing the situation. His face was full of disbelief. The Old Valley Master killed a few peak masters instantly. "Master, don't go." Yi Qingtang stretched her hand out and pulled Perfected Xianxun back to prevent him from getting near the Old Valley Master. "Qingtang, did the Old Valley Master enter the chi deviation during his treatment?" Perfected Xianxun looked towards Yi Qingtang immediately. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes and scanned through the elder in front of her. Yi Qingtang pulled back her sight and shook her head towards Perfected Xianxun. She frowned and said, "Master, I don't think that the Old Valley Master entered the chi deviation. When a cultivator entered the chi deviation, his own injuries would only get worse. However, based on the Old Valley Master's current situation, he was full of energy and vitality with no trace of injury at all. Furthermore, if a cultivator entered the chi deviation, his martial ability would not increase exponentially. The aura that the Old Valley Master revealed just now let Yi Qingtang feel threatened as well. According to her knowledge, the Old Valley Master's martial ability was just a normal young lord at his peak time, not the chi deviation. Perfected Xianxun was shocked. If it was not because of the chi deviation, what made the Old Valley Master like that now? The few peak masters' corpses turned into a ball of black fog under the influence of the black pearl at his glabella and were absorbed by the pearl. This is weird. Why is the dimension wall broken? The old Valley Master murmured to himself after absorbing the bodies of the few peak master. The old Valley Master's murmur entered Yi Qingtang's ears. At the same time, a black glint radiated out from the old Valley Master's glabella and surrounded the Nine Knights dynasty. It should be enough to use all living creatures in the Nine Knights dynasty as the price, the old Valley Master said softly. Everyone in the Falling Sky Valley froze on the spot and could not believe what was happening. The black light contained unimaginable power that could destroy everything. Come here. The old Valley Master looked at some senior members and disciples of the Falling Sky Valley and smiled. In the next second, everyone was killed with his invisible power. Stop! Perfected Xianxian shouted. The old Valley Master sized up Perfected Xianxian. Old Valley Master, what are you doing? Perfected Zuanshan's voice quivered. The old Valley Master laughed softly and said, Xianxian, you're my favorite person in the entire Falling Sky Valley. If not, I would not ask you to replace the position as the Valley Master back then. However, I'm back now, and you should die in honor. The old Valley Master lifted his arm and tried to grab Perfected Xianxian after he finished his words. Yi Qingtang immediately blocked Perfected Xianxian, and her divine power of a young lord exploded out from her body to suppress the old Valley Master's terrifying power. A young lord at such a young age. You're quite extraordinary, even at my age. However, you don't need to rush. It'll be your turn after I kill everyone else. The old Valley Master looked at Yi Qingtang and smiled. Your age. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly when she heard the old Valley Master's words. He was not as simple as how he appeared. Chapter 1079, 10,000 Years. Old Valley Master of the Falling Sky Valley. What's the relationship between you and the extraordinary lady? Yi Qingtang stared at the old Valley Master and contemplated. The extraordinary lady? The old Valley Master was slightly stunned after hearing Yi Qingtang's words. The extraordinary lady who used her spiritual abode to create this mainland, Yi Qingtang said coldly. The old Valley Master was taken aback and stared at Yi Qingtang in surprise. After a while, the old Valley Master said, How did you know about that? You don't need to know about that. Yi Qingtang replied coldly. The old Valley Master's response proved that Yi Qingtang's guess was correct. The old Valley Master must be related to the extraordinary lady who created the mainland. You know quite a lot based on your age. The extraordinary lady you mentioned was regarded as a god by us. After she came to the mainland, she led us to the magnificent martial civilization. She used her own spiritual abode to create the land for us. The elder was immersed in deep thought, as if he had returned to that age. However, things did not go well. Her divine power was used up as she lost her spiritual abode. However, without her divine power, she still enjoyed our worship and respect. She really treated herself as a god. How funny was that? Ha! The old Valley Master's expression was getting a little insane. Yi Qingtang was slightly stunned after hearing his explanation. The extraordinary lady had passed away around 10,000 years ago. According to the old Valley Master's words, it seemed that he lived in the same age as the extraordinary lady and had even served her before. Perfected Xianxian and the rest all froze, stunned. None of them could understand the conversation between the old Valley Master and Yi Qingtang. Who was the extraordinary lady? What spiritual abode? God are they talking about? Yi Qingtang looked at the old Valley Master coldly and said, The extraordinary lady had passed away for around 10,000 years. It seemed that you lived in the same age as her. Ha! Young girl, you're very clever. No wonder you can become a young lord at your age. I have lived for more than 10,000 years. I was the first sect master of Yinshao sect, and I created the Falling Sky Valley. I always change my identity every few hundred or thousand years. Yi Qingtang's expression changed slightly as well after the old Valley Master finished his words. The person in front of her really had lived for 10,000 years. What a pity there isn't enough spirit energy on this mainland. Furthermore, the extraordinary lady you mentioned used her remaining divine power as a curse to build the dimension wall after she passed away. The dimension wall could shield any outsiders and also prevent us from leaving this mainland. If not, I believe some of us would have become emperor-level figures. The old Valley Master sighed softly and helplessly. Yi Qingtang did not know about the curse from the little white tiger. Even the little white tiger might not know about that. The old Valley Master was right. If it was not due to the power of the curse that prevented the group of ancient people from leaving the mainland, they all had the chance to become emperor-level figures after living for 10,000 years. How did you manage to live so long? Yi Qingtang frowned and asked. Chapter 1080 Eternity is Solitary. 1. He had been living for more than 10,000 years. What kind of concept was that? Any cultivator who could live for 10,000 years could become an extremely powerful figure in the world. It was not impossible to even become an emperor-level figure. However, it was extremely difficult to live for 10,000 years. Yi Qingtang stared at the old Valley Master in front of her and could not figure out how he managed to live for so long. The old Valley Master heard the number and was embedded in memories. It seemed like he was trying to chase his past. 10,000 years, the old Valley Master sighed after a long while. I have lived for too long. I almost forget about it. The old Valley Master swept his eyes across Yi Qingtang. He shook his head slightly and sighed. NSU. The ancient people consumed the extraordinary lattice body parts after killing her. I ate her heart, and I have no idea why her heart can give me eternal life. The old Valley Master did not avoid talking about the things that happened 10,000 years ago. However, when he mentioned about consuming the body parts, an unusual look appeared in his eyes. I see. Yi Qingtang frowned. The extraordinary lady 10,000 years ago was really close to a god. No one would expect that her heart would give eternal life. However, the extraordinary lady was too merciful. If not, she would not end up with such a consequence. She sacrificed everything she had and nurtured a batch of ungrateful people. I have not been saying these things for a long period of time. Not many from my age are still alive now. The old Valley Master looked at Yi Qingtang and smiled as he shook his head. Yi Qingtang stared at the old Valley Master. She could feel a sense of sadness and hopelessness in his eyes when he talked about these things. However, the expression disappeared after a second. It was hard to catch that if she did not pay attention. Yi Qingtang understood the whole image from the old Valley Master's words. The old Valley Master of Falling Sky Valley should be an ancient person from 10,000 years ago. After killing the extraordinary lady, the old Valley Master ate her heart and had eternal life. However, the curse left by the extraordinary lady prevented the ancient people of that age from leaving this mainland. The only way to break the curse was to get the extraordinary lattice spiritual abode. If the old Valley Master got his hand on the spiritual abode, he could break the curse and leave the mainland. As long as he was able to leave the mainland, his power would increase exponentially with his 10,000 years of life. The old Valley Master looked around, and a trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. However, the hesitation disappeared immediately. The old Valley Master raised his hand in the next second. A black glint exploded from the black pearl at his glabella and turned all corpses into black fog. Old Valley Master, what do you want? Perfected Xianxian stared at the old Valley Master and shouted. An ominous feeling arose in his heart. Chapter 1081 Eternity is Solitary too. I need to get the spiritual abode if I want to leave the mainland. The old Valley Master stared at Perfected Xianxian without any emotion. He had to destroy this mainland in order to obtain the spiritual abode. He needed to start from the Nine Knights dynasty to kill and destroy every living creature on this mainland. Based on the old Valley Master's martial ability, it was not difficult for him to do so. After thinking through what the old Valley Master was going to do, Yi Qingtang immediately jumped off the ground and pulled out the black-grade regicide skyblade. Her divine phoenix power exploded at the same time as well. A giant flame phoenix appeared by her back. A soft roar appeared, seeming to be able to make the world tremble. Swoosh! Yi Qingtang waved her regicide skyblade and slashed towards the old Valley Master. She did not care what thoughts the old Valley Master had. There were still her family and friends on this mainland. She would not allow anyone to destroy that. However, the old Valley Master stood there without any intention to dodge. Clank! Under everyone's gaze, the instant where Yi Qingtang slashed her sword down, the old Valley Master raised his right arm slightly. He used 2 fingers and caught Yi Qingtang's regicide skyblade. Yi Qingtang frowned as her sword was held by the old village master. A trace of surprise appeared in her eyes. An image of yin yang intersecting with the sun and moon appeared behind the old Valley Master. A remote power that broke through the sky landed. Everyone in the falling sky valley froze on the spot. Yi Qingtang was astonished as she saw the yin yang and the sun with the moon. Yin yang, perfected Lord. 10th heaven. Yi Qingtang widened her eyes and stared at the image behind the old Valley Master. As all had known, Yin yang, perfected Lord, was classified into 10 heavens. However, the 10th heaven had become a legend. It was extremely hard to find someone at the 9th heaven of Yin yang, perfected Lord. After entering the 8th heaven of Yin yang, perfected Lord level, one would encounter the bottleneck. It was rare to hear any cultivator that was able to enter the 9th heaven for the past thousands of years. Almost all cultivators started to charge towards arcane supremacy after reaching the 8th heaven of Yin yang, perfected Lord. In Yi Qingtang's previous life, after reaching the peak of the 8th heaven, she wanted to explore the legendary level and charge towards the 9th heaven. However, she found no clue in the next 3 years. It seemed that there were no 9th and 10th heaven at all. Yi Qingtang could not help but break through the 8th heaven and enter the arcane supremacy. After living for 2 lives, this was the first time she saw the legendary 10th heaven of Yin yang, perfected Lord. Indeed, you're very talented. A young lord at such a young age. The old Valley Master looked up at Yi Qingtang and murmured, "You remind me of my disciple." The little guy was only 8 or 9 years old, and he was a heavenly venerate. The old Valley Master frowned as he recalled something. Heavenly venerate, his disciple. Yi Qingtang looked at the old Valley Master in shock. Before she could say anything, the old Valley Master lifted his right arm. Yi Qingtang was then thrown out by a powerful and ineffable force. Chapter 1082 Eternity is solitary. 3. There's no time left. The old Valley Master sighed softly. The black pearl at his glabella flew toward the sky. Almost instantly, a black fog exploded and surrounded the entire Nine Nights dynasty in darkness. Yi Qingtang steadied herself. She stared at the old Valley Master and asked, "You killed a selfless lady for your own greed. Now, you want to use all living creatures' lives on the mainland as your stepping stone to break the curse." Yi Qingtang would not call herself a kind person. However, she could not accept the fact that he was going to kill everyone. After hearing Yi Qingtang's words, the old Valley Master remained silent. After a while, he raised his head and looked at Yi Qingtang. "I have given too much time to this mainland. However, the dimension wall is broken. I believe that there will be a lot of powerful people coming from elsewhere soon to take this spiritual abode. Why not just give it to me?" Yi Qingtang stared at the old Valley Master, who seemed to be very determined. There was no trace of hesitation. No matter how he tried to explain himself, he could never erase the crimes he had committed due to his selfishness. When the snow fell, the divine king appeared. When he raised his head, he saw the most beautiful spirit. However, time flies, and hair whitened almost instantly. The old Valley Master sighed with a complex expression. The old Valley Master's sigh and murmur landed into Yi Qingtang's ears. She was slightly stunned. Divine King Luo Shui. Before the mainland was formed 10,000 years ago, there was a hero appeared after a snowstorm. He was known as the Divine King Luo Shui. The Divine King Luo Shui led ancient people to form tribes and battled everywhere. His story was written in an enclosed historical record. You are Divine King Luo Shui. Yi Qingtang stared at the Old Valley Master in surprise. The Old Valley Master's body trembled slightly. His subtle reaction was all captured by Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang felt a mixed chain of emotions. If her assumption was correct, the Old Valley Master was the Divine King Luo Shui from 10,000 years ago. According to the legend, Divine King Luo Shui lived together with a demon 10,000 years ago. In one battle against a strong enemy, he lost, and he used his life to cover for the demon for it to escape. However, the demon was not willing to leave and was willing to die together with him. The Divine King Luo Shui in the legend cared for everything, even for a demon. Yi Qingtang could not believe that the person in front of her who betrayed the extraordinary lady, ate her heart, and wished to kill everyone here as a stepping stone would be the Divine King Luo Shui in the legends, the one that was so selfless and kind. Either the Divine King Luo Shui was lying or the historical record was wrong. However, Yi Qingtang was not sure of the truth. Boom! Suddenly, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Blood-red streaks of lightning appeared in the clouds and were about to attack everyone like a beast. Swoosh! In the next second, the blood-red streaks of lightning struck towards the Old Valley Master from midair. Yi Qingtang was shocked. The blood-red streaks of lightning contained enormous power of the sky. Yi Qingtang could still remember how she encountered the heavenly tribulation when she was about to charge towards the holy venerate. She almost died under the heavenly tribulation. Eventually, she managed to avoid the heavenly tribulation and became a holy venerate. Chapter 1083 Divine King Luo Shui 1. The Old Valley Master did not have any signs of advancing, but why was there a blood-colored heavenly tribulation falling from the sky? Ha! Ha ha! Although there were blood-colored streaks of lightning raining down, the Old Valley Master was laughing heartily. With one hand controlling heaven and earth, and the other controlling the sun and the moon, he received the streaks of lightning like a true god without any trace of fear. Yi Qingtang was taken aback by the sight. Who in this world could face the heavenly tribulation with smiles? It was most likely only Divine King Luo Shui. Clank! A black saber appeared in Divine King Luo Shui's hand. Old friend, it's been long. The Old Valley Master looked at the black saber in his hand and chuckled. Before everyone's shocked eyes, a clear voice sounded from the black saber. Divine King Luo Shui, I have been sealed by you for thousands of years. I never thought that you would actually bring me out today. Ha! Meeting an old friend again. How great! The Old Valley Master laughed. The smile on his face completely contrasted that of a serious character. The heavenly tribulation is here. Fight! The saber shouted. In the next second, the Old Valley Master rushed to the sky, and the saber swept across the blood-colored streaks of lightning. Boom! Boom! There was a loud eruption when the black saber faced the heavenly tribulation as though the sky was about to explode. Regicide Skyblade? Yi Qingtang stared at the sword in the Old Valley Master's hand, and her pupils dilated slightly. The long sword in the Old Valley Master's hand was actually the genuine Regicide Skyblade. Although Yi Qingtang's black-grade weapon was also named the Regicide Skyblade, it was an imitation of the heaven-level divine weapon, Regicide Skyblade. The weapon in Divine King Luo Shui's hand was the true heaven-level divine weapon, Regicide Skyblade. At this instant, Yi Qingtang did not even have time to think. The Regicide Skyblade smashed the blood-colored streaks of lightning violently, and the might of the heavenly tribulation swept throughout the place as though it wanted to extinguish every being in the world. Very quickly, the first heavenly tribulation was broken through. Divine King Luo Shui's heaven-level divine weapon pointed to the sky proudly as though it had returned to millions of years ago, an era which it belonged to. Old friend, the clear spirit from the regicide sky blade sounded. The road that you chose. Isn't the price a little too huge? Price. Divine King Luo Shui was expressionless, and he seemed to be in thought. After so many years, he had almost forgotten his initial thinking and who he exactly was. I don't wish to become eternal, Divine King Luo Shui mumbled. Eternity is lonely. This road is too difficult. If you really swallowed her heart back then, would you still need to be afraid of the curse? You could have left this mainland a long time ago and became a true legend. Yet you chose the toughest road. After 10,000 years, do you still love her? A soft sigh emitted from the regicide skyblade. However, Divine King Luo Shui did not say anything and responded with silence. Initially, she remained in this mainland because of you, but you did not accept her feelings and persuaded her to leave. It seems that you already knew the awful nature of those people. It's just a pity that she was unwilling to leave, until when her temple was destroyed and faith was tarnished. You appeared and disguised yourself as those people to split her flesh. You brought her heart away and stored it in your body, bearing her curse of anger. But this ruined your entire life. Was this really worth it? The regicide sky blade said. Chapter 1084 Divine King Luo Shui 2. You're unwilling to admit that you are Divine King Luo Shui, as you're afraid of tainting that name. In these 10,000 years, you pretended to be a wicked person. But if you're really wicked, you could have destroyed this mainland a long time ago with your determination. I can already feel that your heart was bleeding when you killed one Falling Sky Valley disciple. You wish to leave with her heart. You think that by keeping her heart as a whole, there will always be a chance to revive her. However, 10,000 years have passed, and her soul has already disappeared. Are you still going to avoid this problem? Why are you not willing to face reality? The regicide sky blade's words knocked onto Divine King Luo Shui's heart, and his expression changed. Only the regicide sky blade that had been by Divine King Luo Shui's side knew what exactly happened 10,000 years ago. No one knew the weight of this issue. Yeah, 10,000 years have passed, Divine King Luo Shui mumbled. You're afraid that the dimension wall breaks. You're even more afraid that the powerful figures from the outside world will come to this mainland and take her spiritual abode away. Once that happens, your curse will never be removed. You cannot leave with her heart, and she will not have any chance to revive. Ultimately, you're just deceiving yourself and others. Even if you can leave this mainland, she is still unable to be revived. Old friend, wake up, regicide skyblade sighed. For that overly compassionate, extraordinary lady, the once unique and unrivaled Divine King Luo Shui was now. Boom! Suddenly, blood-colored streaks of lightning appeared once again. Bolts of lightning filled the sky aggressively. This heavenly tribulation array formation is laid by those people, and its might is no weaker than a real heavenly tribulation. As long as you intend to leave, the array formation will be activated until you're completely dead. Old friend, I am with you, said the regicide skyblade. Ha, great. Old friend, what do I have to fear with you here? Divine King Luo Shui laughed aloud, still jovial, even when facing the terrifying force of the heavenly tribulation. Boom, 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 boom. In the next second, several thick bolts of lightning struck down at Divine King Luo Shui. With the regicide sky blade in hand, Divine King Luo Shui stood in the air silently in superiority, but his figure was extremely lonely. 10,000 years ago, he had an excellent reputation. Now, all that was known was his infamy 10,000 years ago, who did not recognize Divine King Luo Shui. 10,000 years later, who knew about Divine King Luo Shui? Divine King Luo Shui, who was forgotten and abandoned by everyone, wielded the regicide sky blade once again and fought against the heavens. Swoosh! A black sword glint opposed the blood-red bolts of lightning directly. Boom! The sword glint broke after being unable to block the heavenly might. Divine King was heavily injured and fell from the sky. However, he never landed on the ground. With a laugh, he charged upward to the sky once again and received the blow. At this instant, Yi Qingtang was shaken as she looked at the figure that remained still almost eternally. She heard everything that the regicide Skyblade had said just now. The truth that no one knew of shocked her. She originally thought that he was like those others from 10,000 years ago who turned their backs on that extraordinary lady to gain more power. Yet unexpectedly, what kind of person was Divine King Luo Shui? And what was his relationship with the extraordinary lady? Chapter 1085 Divine King Luo Shui 3. Why did he rather bear the endless infamy and tell the world about all his evil deeds, tearing down the palace and destroying the faith when all he wanted was to protect the extraordinary Lattice Heart? An originally compassionate man eventually did not hesitate to slaughter living beings and wanted to leave this mainland with that extraordinary Lattice Heart. The force of the heavenly might was increasingly frightening, making it seem as though all the gods personally brought the calamities to the people. The scary array formation force from 10,000 years ago was still extremely terrifying when appearing now. What was sealed in the array formation was the true force of the heavenly tribulation and the fury of the heavenly might. Bolts and bolts of blood-colored lightning were destroyed by Divine King Luo Shui. And even more heavenly might exploded on Divine King Luo Shui's body. Currently, Divine King Luo Shui's body was already covered by fresh blood, but the heroic and heart-wrenching laughter echoed continuously. However, at this very instant, a few gold carriages appeared in the sky not far away. Several huge demons pulled the gold carriages and circled around the sky. Divine King Luo Shui indeed wishes to leave this mainland to revive that woman. If that woman is revived, wouldn't we definitely die? A deep voice sounded from one of the gold carriages. Ha! It's fortunate that we foresaw this and hid an ancient array formation on Divine King Luo Shui's body. Once he wishes to obtain the spiritual abode and leave this mainland, the ancient array formation will be activated, and he will definitely die. Yi Qingtang's eyes were on those gold carriages right now. Once she saw the symbol on those gold carriages, she was slightly taken aback. The hidden ancient clan. The historical records of this mainland once documented that somewhere between the clouds and mountains, there existed a hidden ancient clan that was shut away from the world, and its symbol was exactly the same as the one won the gold carriage. There were plenty of rumors regarding those ancient clans in this world, but in her previous life, Yi Qingtang had never seen a single hidden ancient clan even when she left this mainland. She originally thought that the existence of the hidden ancient clan was merely a random record and not the truth, or that perhaps those ancient clans had already long passed away over time. Thus, Yi Qingtang used the name of the hidden ancient clan to deceive Peerless School and the few peak masters of Falling Sky Valley. But it turned out that the hidden ancient clan actually existed in this mainland. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes at those gold carriages. She did not know why the hidden ancient clan suddenly appeared and came here. But for some reason, Yi Qingtang faintly sensed that the appearance of these hidden ancient clans was perhaps related to Divine King Luo Shui. Boom! The blood-colored lightning rained down nonstop, and the force of the heavenly might was difficult to block. Divine King Luo Shui was eventually unable to block the frightening attack of the heavenly tribulation, and his body fell from the sky. Old Valley Master, seeing that Divine King Luo Shui's body fell, perfected Xianxian and the other Falling Sky Valley masses were sorrowful. Although no one knew what exactly happened to the Old Valley Master's body, most of them at the scene would already have died without him. The Old Valley Master once blocked many disasters and saved the lives of numerous Falling Sky Valley members. All of this was inexplicable. Divine King Luo Shui's consciousness was gradually blurred, and his tight grip on the regicide sky blade slowly loosened. The regicide sky blade side. Old friend, dignified divine King Luo Shui, is at the end today. Your dream is not yet fulfilled. Ending like this, is it a pity? Chapter 1086, Is it a pity? 1. Is it a pity? Divine King Luo Shui closed his eyes, but his lips tugged up slightly into a heart-wrenching smile. 10,000 years ago, between the clouds and mountains, the flowers were in full bloom. There were vibrant blooms, chirping of birds, natural wind, and fluffy clouds at the mountain ranges. A man in snow-white clothes with outstanding looks was walking. You are divine King Luo Shui. I am Yu Yin from the central mainland. I like you. It was as though that lady walked out from a painting. She was so beautiful that one could not bear to touch her. Divine King Luo Shui's heart raced as he looked at that alluring face. Many seasons later, the lady became a respected goddess of the people, and together with Divine King Luo Shui, they led the masses toward a brighter future. However, years later, the lattice divine powers were slowly bled dry. As the lattice divine powers were exhausted, the world was filled with abomination. The ancient people smashed the lattice statue, destroyed the temple, and tainted the faith with resentment. It was a dark era. I want her heart. In the temple, Divine King Luo Shui wielded the regicide sky blade and killed the ancient people like a madman, making them pay with their lives. However, in the end, a few elite family clan powerful figures appeared and joined forces to suppress Divine King Luo Shui. I want her heart. I want her heart. Ultimately, Divine King Luo Shui seemed to give in and became a puppet without emotions in front of the millions of powerful figures. After swallowing the lattice heart, he left the temple and disappeared for 10,000 years. Suddenly, Divine King Luo Shui opened his eyes, and a surge of white-colored divine power emerged in his eyes and rushed into the clouds. In Yi Qingtang's disbelief, an extraordinarily stunning lady appeared in the form of a virtual image. She stood beside Divine King Luo Shui protectively with an elegant smile on her face. Divine King Luo Shui used all his energy to touch the lady, but his palm passed through her body. It was mystifying. Yi Qingtang looked at that perfect lady, perplexed. At this moment, Yi Qingtang finally understood everything that the regicide sky blade and Divine King Luo Shui were talking about. That lady should be the extraordinary lady from 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, she once adored Divine King Luo Shui and was willing to remain on this mainland for him. Divine King Luo Shui did not hesitate to bear the countless sins and conceal his identity for 10,000 years, just to leave this mainland with her heart and revive her once again. 10,000 years elapsed quickly. In these 10,000 years, Divine King Luo Shui clung onto that last trace of hope and lived with the company of loneliness. As for that extraordinary lady, even after she died, her obsession with her loved one was also hidden deep in her heart. When Divine King Luo Shui encountered a calamity today, the obsession transformed into the appearance of that extraordinary lady when she was alive and appeared here to protect the most important person in her life. As the lady waved her hand, the blood-colored lightning exploded and vanished without a trace. I am Yu Yin from Central Mainland. Divine King Luo Shui, I like you. The lady looked at Divine King Luo Shui as she continuously repeated the words she said when they first met. Divine King Luo Shui trembled. A strong man was, however, no longer able to bear the pain as he sobbed softly. The scene from 10,000 years ago seemed to replay once again. After the extraordinary lady died back then, Divine King Luo Shui brought her heart to a small tree, and no one knew the location of it. Once the little tree grew into a tall tree of a towering multitude, Divine King Luo Shui's jet black hair had already turned white. He remained under the tree for 30 years, without knowledge of what year it was. Chapter 1087, Is It a Pity? 2. Ancient Clan. Yi Qingtang stared at the gold carriages that were being pulled by a few demons in the air, and her expression changed. She never expected that the historical records were actually real and not a hoax. No one knew how powerful the hidden ancient clan was, and the initial Blood Moon sect probably could not be compared to it. The development of the issue had way surpassed Yi Qingtang's expectations. All of this was a chain reaction after the dimension wall broke. Once the dimension wall broke, powerful figures from the outside world would come to snatch the spiritual abode. As such, Divine King Luo Shui made up his mind to destroy the world, and his determination activated the heavenly tribulation array formation that had been laid on him 10,000 years ago. Yi Qingtang guessed that the hidden ancient clan was probably from the same generation as Divine King Luo Shui and was closely related to Divine King Luo Shui and the extraordinary lady. The blood-colored lightning continued on, but the sky darkened. A small drizzle rained down in no time. The virtual image of the lady remained beside Divine King Luo Shui, and her face was as calm still water. 10,000 years later, it was as though it was their first meeting 10,000 years ago. Divine King Luo Shui stood up slowly and looked at the familiar yet foreign lady before him. After 10,000 years of longing, he could no longer hold himself back. Divine King Luo Shui stretched a hand out towards the lady. His fingers trembled as he desperately wanted to hold onto something. However, his 5 fingers passed through that lattice body. There was nothing other than air. Yun, it's me. Have you forgotten? In the Nine Lives Palace under the Bodhi tree, you said that in this life, you will marry no one but me. There was a trace of anticipation in Divine King Luo Shui's eyes, as though he was hoping for Yu Yun to react. Nonetheless, it was as if the lady did not hear anything, as she merely guarded in front of Divine King Luo Shui to dispel the blood-colored streaks of lightning. He clearly remembered what happened 10,000 years ago. After Yu Yun died, Divine King Luo Shui came to a little tree with Yu Yun's heart. With that one sit, no one knew how many times the grass on the ground withered and the skies changed. Day after day, year after year, over the years, the little tree grew into a towering tree with fertile soil in the surroundings. That day, Divine King Luo Shui's black hair turned into snow white. It was also that day where he buried all his love under the soil. From then on, he changed his appearance and concealed his identity. There no longer was a Divine King Luo Shui in the world anymore. Now, 10,000 years later, Divine King Luo Shui finally met Yu Yun once again. That lady who dared to love and hate and always told him that she would not marry anyone else but him. That lady who exhausted all his divine power and scattered her love all over this mainland. That lady whose temple was destroyed and flesh was distributed out to be eaten, who left the world with intense resentment. In these 10,000 years, he tried his best to forget himself and Yu Yun and almost went insane. At this moment, 10,000 years of hard work was so fragile. Even for a lady who died from misery, her obsession at the very last moment was still Divine King Luo Shui. 10,000 years ago, Divine King Luo Shui faced a huge calamity, and Yu Yun's obsession appeared once again. You can't hear my voice. You can't hear my voice. As Divine King Luo Shui looked at Yu Yun, it was as though his heart was being ripped apart. Luo Shui was already old, but Yu Yun was still like back then. Her face had never changed. It was so familiar and so foreign. Chapter 1088, Is It a Pity? 3. Divine King Luo Shui called out to Yu Yun, but that lady who had been imprinted in his heart for 10,000 years did not respond. She was so near, yet so far. Ha! Divine King Luo Shui, I already thought that you were harboring evil designs back then. In the end, you really betrayed us. You deserve it. Just when Divine King Luo Shui fixed his gaze on Yu Yun, several elderlies walked out of the gold carriage and floated in the air. Divine King Luo Shui looked in the direction of the voice and saw those ancient clan powerful figures. His face turned extremely cold in an instant. An overpowering martial willpower rushed into the horizon. Huh. If you swallowed that dumb woman's heart from the start, you could have been free from the curse, went to the outside world, and still be that Divine King Luo Shui. Yet look at you now. What are you? A white-haired elderly stared at Divine King Luo Shui and scoffed. This elderly similarly possessed the power to contend against the heavenly might. Yin Yang, 10th heaven. Yi Qingtang sensed an enormous power around that elderly that was actually the same as that of Divine King Luo Shui. Yin Yang, 10th heaven. Yin Yang, 10th heaven, which had disappeared from this world for a long time, actually appeared in two people today. Could it be that, in the era 10,000 years ago, these martial realms are not as simple as Yin Yang perfected Lord Realm? Yi Qingtang frowned slightly as a perplexed expression emerged in her eyes. No matter the ancient clan powerful figures or Divine King Luo Shui, although they had the power of Yin Yang 10th heaven, their martial aura was no weaker than hers when she was a holy venerate back then. It was also to say that the martial skills of these people were definitely not as simple as Yin Yang perfected Lord Realm. In reality, just as Yi Qingtang had guessed, Divine King Luo Shui was unparalleled 10,000 years ago and might defeat even an emperor-level cultivator 10,000 years later. He was known as a magnificent man who was just a small step away from a true god. 10,000 years ago, those powerful family clans were almost at the emperor level. 10,000 years ago, an emperor-level figure was nothing much, as that was a generation where the Divine King was highly respected. There were traces of divinity everywhere, and the brilliance scattered by true gods could be easily spotted. Powerful figures only had one goal, to become a true god. This lasted until the extraordinary lady arrived, made this entire mainland, and led the masses towards an even brighter martial route and the realm of a true god. However, as the extraordinary lattice divine powers were drained, everything calmed down. The masses could not see any hope of becoming a god, and thus vented all their anger on the extraordinary lady and shared her flesh to be consumed. After the extraordinary lady died, her indignation turned into a curse. She cursed the ancient clan of this mainland to never attain liberation and to be unable to leave this mainland forever, and she dispersed all the spirit energy away from this mainland. Without the support of spirit energy, the ancient clan members, who were once neck and neck with emperor-level figures, were as good as having lost all their cultivation base and could only be stuck at the Yin-Yang perfected Lord Realm forever. This was also the same for Divine King Luo Shui. However, those hidden ancient clan members did not know how to break the extraordinary lattice curse, though they were still the most powerful people of this mainland when they remained. They did not allow any member of the ancient clan to leave, especially Divine King Luo Shui. If Divine King Luo Shui left this mainland and restored the power of a Divine King, everlasting perdition would greet them. Divine King Luo Shui, you are heavily injured by the heavenly tribulation today, and you will die here. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.